In the 10th year of my marriage to my wife, I hadn't returned to my hometown once. It was only because I was a live-in son-in-law, having no status in the family. Now, my father was seriously ill, only hoping that I would return with my family for Chinese New Year. But my wife was absolutely unwilling. My mother-in-law even sarcastically said, "It's always said that a married woman is like spilled water, and it's the same for a married man." I've never seen such a useless man who still has the face to run back to his own family. Under the condemnation of the neighbors, I finally got a train ticket, but I never expected that they all bought sleeper tickets while I had to stand all the way home. For over 20 hours, I endured it all. But on the first day back home, they angered my father so much that he suffered a cerebral hemorrhage. Thinking about the grievances of the past 10 years, I finally couldn't help but explode. "Let's get a divorce. You all will pay the price." As the new year approached, the television programs were becoming more festive. I listened to the comical laughter coming from the TV, finished hand-washing my wife's last pair of underwear, rubbed my aching back, and slowly straightened up. At this moment, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and son were nestled on the sofa, munching on melon seeds while watching TV. Xiao Beiming, on the other hand, was smiling brightly at her phone screen, not knowing who she was chatting with. Looking at the warm and happy scene of the family, I wiped the water off my hands and was just about to join them, when Xiao Beiming suddenly looked up, glanced at me faintly, and said, "Having finished the laundry, why don't you hurry up and warm the bed? It's so cold. How am I supposed to sleep?" The winters in the south were cold and damp, with no heating. Even though I had lived here for more than 10 years, I still found it hard to adapt. I could only silently walk into the bedroom, burrow into the cold bedding, curl up, and slowly use my body heat to dispel the chill in the quilt. Speaking of which, I had never returned to my hometown to celebrate the new year since we got married. Firstly, my hometown was more than 600 kilometers away, which made traveling tiring. Secondly, and more importantly, my wife's family didn't like me constantly mentioning going back to my parents' home. But this year, my mother said on the phone that my father was seriously ill, and his greatest wish was for me to take my wife and children back for the new year. Thinking about my father's declining health and how I hadn't been able to fulfill my filial duty, my heart was filled with guilt. I thought that my wife was in a good mood today, so I could discuss it with her. Thinking about this, I actually dozed off. When Xiao Beiming entered the room and saw me, she didn't say a word, but instead kicked my butt hard. "Move over to your side. I told you to warm the bed, and you actually fell asleep? Aren't you afraid that drool will get on my pillow? How disgusting." I quickly moved to the edge of the bed, the cold bedding making me shiver involuntarily. I cautiously spoke. "Wife, this year, let's go back to my hometown for the new year, okay? My parents really want to see you." Before I could finish my words, Xiao Beiming's face changed. She frowned and impatiently interrupted me. "Why are you bringing this up again? I've said it before. Our custom here is to spend the new year at the wife's family home. Since you became a live-in son-in-law, you need to be clear about your identity." "But I haven't been back for 10 years. I explained softly. "My mom said that my dad is seriously ill, and if I don't go back this time, I'm afraid." She suddenly sat up in the quilt, the tiger mask stuck to her face, looking especially terrifying as she spat out harsh words. "Feng Junleng, from the moment you stepped into this family, you should have understood. Your parents are no longer your parents. The people you need to be filial to are my parents. It's definitely not their turn. You." I was trembling with anger. The noise also attracted my in-laws, and as soon as my mother-in-law saw Xiao Beiming's angry face, she immediately walked in front of me and began to scold me relentlessly. "You're a live-in son-in-law. What right do you have to make demands? It's your good fortune that our Mingming wants you. What else are you not satisfied with? It's always said that a married woman is like spilled water, and it's the same for a married man. Anyway, this new year, you're not allowed to go anywhere. Just stay here and serve us well." Their actions completely chilled my heart. I gritted my teeth and stated my decision. "Then I can only go back by myself? When the neighbors say something unpleasant, don't blame your son-in-law." Seeing that my attitude was firm this time, Xiao Beiming became even more unhappy. She pointed at my nose and scolded me. "Feng Junleng, you've grown wings, haven't you? How dare you talk to me like that? Since you don't want to stay in this house, then get out and go sleep somewhere else. Go wherever you want." She chased me out of the room and slammed the door shut. I stood outside the door, trembling all over. My heart, aching like a knife, was twisting inside it. The son hid behind the door, his eyes full of disdain and disgust, saying in a voice only I could hear, "Good for nothing. You deserve it." Faced with the whole family's siege, I sat powerlessly at the door, gazing at the pitch-black night sky outside the window, letting the cold wind whip my face. I don't know which nosy neighbor it was, but they posted a picture of my desolate back in the owner's group, and the group exploded instantly. Isn't that the live-in son-in-law from Building 3? He's been kicked out again, right? Their family is so loud. I heard it's because he wanted to go back home for Chinese New Year to see his parents, but his wife absolutely refused. Sigh. I've seen this young man. He seems like a pretty honest person. His wife is just too much. Seeing the discussions in the group, Xiao Beiming became furious. She immediately replied in the group, "Don't talk nonsense. Who said we aren't letting him go back? We're going to his hometown for a family visit this year." After saying that, she suddenly flung open the door, grabbed me, and dragged me inside, then slammed the door shut. "You're something else? You actually resorted to getting the neighbors to be your saviors." Huh? She questioned me angrily. Before I could react, a crisp slap landed on my face. The burning pain instantly spread across my cheek. I covered my face, staring at her blankly. "You want to go back that much? Fine. Hao said he wants to go skiing. We'll all go back with you. Is that enough face for you?" I covered my swollen red face and nodded. Although my face was burning, I felt a surge of relief in my heart when I heard her agree to go home with me for the new year. "Thank you, wife. Thank you, Mom and Dad." The next morning, I couldn't wait to call my mother and tell her the good news that our whole family was going back for the new year. My mother was overjoyed, saying she would slaughter a New Year pig to welcome us. Finally, the day of the Spring Festival travel rush arrived, and I couldn't wait to get to the train station. Along the way, they were all excitedly talking about skiing, ice splashing, and eating frozen pears when we arrived in the north. They didn't mention a single thing about how things would be when we got to my home. I didn't care as long as I could go home. It was a good thing. My mother-in-law said she had already bought the tickets, and I never doubted it. But the moment I got on the train, I was stunned. The four of them comfortably occupied the sleeper berths, while I stood alone in the car, holding a crumpled standing ticket in my hand. For more than 20 hours, I had to endure the cold wind and noisy chaos while standing all the way home. "Wife, is this a mistake? Where's my seat?" I asked cautiously. Xiao Beiming's face was like ice, her voice cold and cutting. "No mistake. If it wasn't to accommodate you going home, will we be wasting so much money? We should save wherever we can." "But we could have bought seated tickets. There was no need for me to stand the whole way back, right?" "You have the nerve to say that? My parents are so old, and Hao is still young. Traveling is exhausting. Not only do you not sympathize with them, but you're also picking and choosing. Do you have any conscience?" Xiao Beiming's voice got louder and louder, every word like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart. I took a deep breath, wanting to try and negotiate again, even if it meant just letting me sit for a little while. At this time, my son, Hao, also joined the chorus of condemnation, his childish voice saying incredibly harsh words. "Dad, Mom said that you've been eating, drinking, and using her things all these years. She's already given you enough face. Stand if you want. Don't ruin everyone else's fun. If you don't want to go back, we still want to go skiing." I opened my mouth, wanting to argue, but found my throat choked up, unable to make a sound. The surrounding passengers began to cast strange glances, and murmurs arose. There are all kinds of people these days. His whole family is accompanying him home for the new year, and he's still not satisfied. Right, a typical gold digger. He even has the nerve to go back to his hometown. Doesn't he feel ashamed? My in-laws, seeing that someone was supporting them, became even more smug, their voices increasing by 8 decibels. "Exactly. What's wrong with a big man standing for a bit? We are carrying big bags to visit his family. Isn't it all for him? You're never satisfied. You have no idea how to be grateful." I silently lowered my head, letting them judge me as they pleased. I knew that in their eyes, I was just a useless waste. They had no idea that the so-called big bags weren't gifts for my parents at all, but rather equipment for their vacation. They even took a few empty bags, planning to take away the good things from my home. I didn't want to escalate this farce. As long as I could go home and see my parents, I could endure anything. All the way, they were comfortably lying in their sleeper berths, often ordering me to fetch water and food. My legs were already aching and numb, but they didn't even give me the opportunity to sit down once. "Feng Junlang, the food on the train is so expensive, just make do with instant noodles. I even bought some especially for you." Faced with her generosity, I almost wanted to be moved to tears and thank the heavens for their benevolence. The train jolted along the way until it finally entered my hometown. The taxi stopped in front of a bungalow. My in-laws looked me up and down several times, their eyes full of undisguised disdain. Then they said to Xiao Beiming in a sarcastic tone, "Ming, isn't this practically like poverty alleviation?" Xiao Beiming crossed her arms, stepped out of the car with her head held high, glanced contemptuously at the house, and said with a sneer, "How many good men are willing to be a live-in son-in-law? They're either poor or useless." Hao didn't say anything. Seeing the vast expanse of white snow, he barked excitedly and rolled around in it, having a blast. I ignored them and ran inside as quickly as I could. The moment I saw my parents, the grievances and longing that had been suppressed in my heart instantly surged up. I hugged my mother tightly, and tears flowed uncontrollably. "Mom, I'm back." My mother gently patted my back, comforting me. "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." After a few greetings, my mother warmly welcomed my in-laws. "Dear in-laws, Happy New Year. You must be tired from the journey," my mother-in-law said with a forced smile. "Not at all. It's just that the road was really quite long." My mother's smile stiffened slightly, and she said softly, "Yes, yes, we've made you laugh." My mother-in-law rolled her eyes and said sarcastically, "Well, I must say my son-in-law is quite lucky. He married into the city to enjoy the good life. Otherwise, he'd just be playing in the mud in this poor, remote place." I knew that my in-laws were implying to my mother that I was living off them, and that they had already been good enough to me. My mother was an honest person and didn't understand such subtle hints. She only felt like she hadn't been hospitable enough, and felt even more apologetic. After entering the house, my mother busied herself with cooking, taking out the best pork, duck, and fish that we had. My in-laws didn't stand on ceremony. They sat down casually and quickly reached for the braised pork, each taking a large piece. The fat sizzled in their mouths. "Oh, this meat is so fatty. Aren't you afraid of it being too greasy?" You can tell it's a countryside style. They've never seen anything sophisticated. My father-in-law echoed. "If this were in City A, it would have been complained about already." I suppressed my anger and forced a smile to smooth things over. "Mom, our tastes might be a bit different. Please bear with us. TSK. Your real mother is here. I can't afford you calling me Mom," she said, deliberately slamming her chopsticks heavily on the table, making a crisp sound. Did my mother say anything wrong? We came all this way, and this is how you treat us? Seeing the poverty of my family, they thought they could manipulate me even more. Xiao Beiming pointed at the dishes on the table and said loudly, "These dishes must cost at least a few hundred, right? Where did you get the money? Did you secretly transfer the money back?" I could no longer hold back and abruptly stood up, glaring at them. "Enough! Isn't serving you enough? My mother has worked hard to cook a table of food, and instead of appreciating it, you're here humiliating her." Seeing that I was angry, my mother gently held my hand and said in a dialect only I could understand, "Harmony brings prosperity." Then, turning to them, my mother smiled kindly. "Are my in-laws upset that we haven't visited City more often?" "Alas, my old Feng has trouble with his legs, and his illness has been getting worse recently. I really can't leave." As she spoke, my mother took out a gold bracelet from her pocket and handed it to Xiao Beiming. "Ming Ming, I should have given this to you earlier. It's a Feng family heirloom for our daughter-in-law. It's pure gold, worth tens of thousands." She then took out a thick red envelope and handed it to Hao Hao. "Oh, my grandson, you've grown so much. This is Grandma's New Year's money for you. Use it to buy toys." Hao Hao turned and gave the red envelope to his mother. My mother-in-law snatched it away, and her words still didn't let up. "I must say, this ceremony should have happened sooner. They had to drag it out until now." After they finally finished eating, they began to look around and point fingers. My mother-in-law's sharp and sarcastic voice kept ringing out, "What a shabby house. It's so poor." Xiao Beiming agreed. "That's right, there isn't even any decent furniture. We have to stay in this dump for the entire Spring Festival? Just thinking about it makes me feel suffocated." When they got to the door of my father's room, they didn't even knock, but rudely pushed it open. My father was unwell. After I had greeted him with Hao Hao, my father had already gone to bed to rest. Seeing that my father hadn't gotten up to welcome them, my father-in-law was the first to speak, his tone contemptuous. "Oh, this old man looks half dead, doesn't he?" My mother-in-law immediately chimed in. "That's right, I don't think he has much longer to live. It's really bad luck to have such poor relatives." My dad, who had been closing his eyes, was startled by this sudden movement and opened them wide, struggling to sit up. He said in a trembling voice, "Junling, are you crazy? Is this the family you insisted on marrying into, despite all advice? They don't even treat you like a human being." Upon hearing this, my father-in-law became instantly enraged. "What are you talking about, old man? If you're going to die, die sooner. You're bringing bad luck." My mother-in-law also joined in the cursing. "That's right, you old, good-for-nothing. Just die already and stop wasting air. Such barbaric and unreasonable in-laws. We don't welcome you." You all leave. My father-in-law, Xiao Yiming, only escalated the situation, stepping forward and pushing him around. What? You want to hit me? Don't even look at what you are. Our Ming Ming marrying your son is his blessing from a past life. You understand? Otherwise, with your family, a toad wanted to eat swan meat. You're not worthy of being related to us. Their provocation made my already sick father's face turn red with anger, and his breathing became rapid. What was supposed to be a happy spring festival turned into the mournful wail of an ambulance. Seeing that things were getting out of hand, they actually took the opportunity to slip away while my father was critically ill. After my father was successfully rescued, I returned home in the snow, where the villagers had spontaneously surrounded Xiao Beiming's family of 4 at the village entrance, fearing they would escape. The firelight reflected their terrified and distorted faces. They were trembling, but still shouting, "You bunch of peasants, what do you think you're doing? How dare you block our way?" At that moment, my heart was raging with anger. Thinking of their faces, the miserable state of my father, I finally couldn't bear it anymore and exploded. I approached them step by step, my eyes like torches. "Xiao Beiming, I've tolerated all the ways you've bullied me because I love you. But when my dad is in critical condition, you're only thinking about running away. You're so disappointing. I've already called the police. None of you will escape." Almost at the same time, a string of military jeeps came roaring over. I looked up and saw that my buddy, Lu Yu, had actually come himself. He was in military uniform and strode up to me, gave a hearty laugh, and gave me a bear hug. "Brother, I've been waiting and waiting, and finally you're back." I couldn't believe it when I received the report. He turned to face the Xiao Beiming family, his gaze suddenly sharp. "Let me see who had the audacity to bully my brother's family." I pointed at the Xiao Beiming family and roared. "They verbally abused and pushed my dad. He's in the emergency room now. Take them away." At this moment, Hao Hao ran towards me, crying, "Daddy, Daddy, don't arrest us." I didn't make Grandpa angry. My face was stern, and I said to him, "You're 6 years old now. You should be able to tell right from wrong. When you do wrong, you have to pay the price." My mother-in-law shouted hoarsely, "Police officers, you're here at the right time. Quickly arrest them. This bunch of peasants. I'm reporting them for illegal detention." The villagers roared deafeningly. "Reporting us? For bullying old Director Feng who works for the people. Even if we're all arrested, we're not afraid." My father-in-law stammered, "WH? What does that mean? Don't try to scare me, such a poor family." My buddy Lu Yu stepped forward directly, grabbing my father-in-law Xiao Yiming's hand and twisting it behind his back. "What nerve! A retired soldier is someone people like you can insult. If you talk nonsense again, be careful my bullets have no eyes." Lu Yu tightened his grip, and Xiao Yiming whimpered a few times in pain. He was completely frightened, slumped to the ground, and a smell of urine permeated the air. I wrinkled my brows in disgust. "Take them away." Xiao Beiming finally reacted, her slender fingers tightly clutching me. "Honey, I think this is a misunderstanding. We were so kind to come home with you for the new year. We didn't do it on purpose." I didn't say anything and fiercely shook off her hand. If it were usual times, if Xiao Beiming just softened her tone with me, I would definitely stand by her side without hesitation. But now, my heart was completely cold. Watching them being taken away, I felt no joy, only endless exhaustion. My father was still in the hospital, and my mother was heartbroken because of the sudden turn of events. This year I ruined it again. That night was the first time in 10 years I had returned to my home in the north. The warm Kong bed made my back itchy, but my thoughts were like a wild horse. They wouldn't stop. Starting with my grandfather, my family has had 3 generations of soldiers. My father was even more honest and diligent throughout his life, and did many good things for the village and the people. However, he was good to everyone, but only felt guilty towards me, his son. Since I was a child, I longed for his attention, but he always had a "I'm the busiest person in the world" attitude, either in meetings or working in the countryside. I haven't even seen him in his military uniform many times. Later, when I grew up, I became rebellious and deliberately went against him. After I was discharged from the army, I ran to City A without looking back, over 600 kilometers away, just to get far away from him. In City A, I met Xiao Beiming. She was beautiful, delicate, like a flower in a greenhouse, needing to be cherished in the palm of your hand. I plunged headfirst, loving her to the point of madness. Whatever she said was law. When she said she wouldn't marry far away, I agreed to live in her family's home. When she said she wanted to live together, I agreed. My father was furious, pointing at my nose and scolding me for being spineless, saying that I would regret it sooner or later. At that time, I was young and hot-blooded and couldn't listen to any of it, even arguing back, saying, "I'm in charge of my own life." Looking back now, I really want to slap myself twice across the face. Although my father didn't say it, he still felt sorry for me, secretly giving me all the money he'd saved his whole life so that I could buy a house in City A. Ultimately, he still wanted me to have a good life. But what about me? I took his money and used it to please someone else's daughter. What an unfilial son. After Xiao Beiming got pregnant, she became even more delicate. Her parents also rose to power with her, using me like a servant. Every day after getting off work, I would first serve her parents dinner, then serve Xiao Beiming, and only then could I finally eat myself. Xiao Beiming quit her job to stay at home. The entire financial burden was on me alone. All my monthly salary was handed over, without any personal space. Her parents were also always sarcastic towards me, saying that I wasn't good enough for Xiao Beiming, that I was a kept man. I endured it all because I loved her, right? But they became even more outrageous. After Hao Hao was born, my parents wanted to see their grandson, but they did everything they could to stop them, saying that they were country people, dirty, and would spread germs to the child. My father was trembling with anger on the phone after hearing those words. I was also furious at the time, having a huge argument with Xiao Beiming, but what did she do? She cried and said that her parents had it rough, asking me to be more tolerant. My heart softened, and I compromised again. Later, my father's health declined, and he never brought up the matter again. Thinking back, what kind of life have I lived these last 10 years? Pathetic, stifled. I was like a puppet on a string, being manipulated by their whole family. My father was right. I was truly blinded by love. That night, I lay on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. Luckily, I still have a few good brothers back home. Luckily, Comrade Lao Feng has such a good reputation. Otherwise, encountering such a thing, I really wouldn't know how to handle it. After thinking it over, I decided I couldn't just sit and wait to die. I suddenly sat up in bed, turned on the computer, and pulled up the home surveillance footage, planning to send it to the police station. The surveillance was what I had previously asked Liu to install, so I could check on my parents' daily lives at any time. I never thought that it would become key evidence at this moment. Without this video, based on my understanding of them, they would definitely deny everything. When I arrived at the police station, the three of them had already been locked up for the night. Hao Hao, because he was young, wasn't brought over and was temporarily being taken care of by my mother. When the door to the detention room opened, Xiao Beiming and her parents were all listless. As soon as Xiao Beiming saw me, she cried with tears streaming down her face. "Husband, please save me. It's dirty and smelly here. I don't want to stay." She looked disheveled and still had the audacity to hope that I could get her out. "When we get home, you can be the boss. Even Hao Hao can take your surname, okay?" Faced with their hypocritical performance, I felt disgusted. I sneered and asked, "Do you think I still care about any of that?" Her mother, Chen Lijuan, wailed, tears and snot running down her face. "Good son-in-law, we were so good to you before. Have you forgotten? How could you be so cruel and send us in here?" Her father, Xiao Yiming, also chimed in. Yes, besides, you said you were coming back to see the parents, and we came without saying a word. We just went in to see him. What's wrong with that?" Faced with their lack of remorse, I could only present the evidence. "This is the surveillance video. What else do you want to deny?" Officer Liu nodded and plugged the USB into the computer, the screen clearly showing how the three of them had insulted and shoved my father. Chen Lijuan's face instantly turned pale, her lips trembling, unable to say a word. Xiao Yiming and Xiao Beiming also lowered their heads, not daring to look me in the eye. This, we can just pay some medical expenses. Is it necessary to detain us?" Officer Liu, with a blank face, began explaining the law, deliberately using words or actions to insult, slander, threaten, beat, or harm a retired soldier, will be held criminally responsible. Unless you get the other party's understanding. Do you understand? Don't even ask around. The Feng family is under our protection. Whoever dares to bully them, they won't have a good ending. The moment these words were spoken, Xiao Beiming's family completely panicked. As if grasping at a life-saving straw, they tightly grabbed my sleeve, pleading bitterly. "Husband/son-in-law, we know we were wrong. Please forgive us. We won't dare to do it again." "Forgive you?" I scoffed. "Do you know how my father has spent the last few years? Do you know how much he misses his grandson? Do you know how much I've sacrificed to maintain this marriage?" With each sentence I spoke, their faces grew paler. They were filled with belated regret. If they hadn't been so unscrupulous, they wouldn't have reached this point. My father is still in the hospital, his life hanging in the balance. When he wakes up, I'll ask him if he wants to forgive you. I shook off their hands and turned to leave. The doctor told me my father had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage. Fortunately, he was brought to the hospital in time and is out of immediate danger. After a long 2 days of waiting, my father finally slowly opened his eyes. At that moment, I was sitting by his bedside, holding his hand, my heart filled with anxiety. His gaze fell on me, as if traveling through the long years, shattering the invisible wall between father and son. His eyes were complex, filled with emotions I couldn't understand, and his eyes gradually became moist. I could no longer control my emotions. I stood up and hid behind the door, letting my tears flow freely. I know that over the years, I have disappointed him too many times. Now, I must make up for my mistakes and become the son he can be proud of. Although this year was full of twists and turns, thankfully, everything turned out to be safe. These days, Hao had been staying with my mother. Perhaps it was the kinship of blood that made him feel the unconditional love from his grandmother, and he gradually let go of his prejudices against me. From my mother, Hao also learned much about my past. He was surprised to find that my true image was completely different from what he had previously known. Xiao Beiming had always slandered me in front of Hao, saying I was a good-for-nothing, living off her family, making him unable to hold his head high at school. However, my mother showed him a side of me that was rarely known: helpful, brave, and resourceful. The whole wall of awards and medals was enough to prove my courage, bravery, and responsibility. One quiet night, Hao and I had a man-to-man talk. "Dad, I'm sorry," Hao said, his voice low and sincere. "I always thought you were weak. That's why you were so submissive at home." He paused, then continued, "Now I understand. You just love us too much, willing to wrong yourself." I stared at him and asked seriously, "I cannot forgive your mother for this. If we separate, who would you want to stay with?" Actually, I knew that Hao had a close bond with his mother, Xiao Beiming, so he was likely to choose to stay with her. However, unexpectedly, Hao said firmly, "Dad, I want to stay with you." My father's condition improved day by day, and the anxiety in my heart gradually subsided. A month later, my father was finally discharged from the hospital. Looking at my father, so hale and hearty, I was filled with immense relief. It was time to deal with another matter. I drove to the detention center and saw Xiao Beiming and her parents again. After a month, they had clearly lost a lot of weight. Their previous arrogance was gone, replaced by deep remorse. Seeing me, they all lowered their heads and apologized in a humble tone, completely different from before. My father had a forgiving heart, not holding grudges, and said that he would no longer pursue their responsibility and agreed to let them go home. I completed the release procedures and went to pick them up on that day. They were grateful to me for regaining their freedom, as if I were their savior, thanking me profusely, promising that they would treat me and Hao well in the future. I calmly stared at them and slowly opened my mouth. "You can go back by yourselves, Hao, and I won't be going back." My words made them freeze. Chun-Li Juan was the first to react, urgently asking, "What do you mean, not going back?" Ignoring her questions, I continued, "I have only one condition for bringing you out, and that is divorce." Xiao Beiming's face instantly turned deathly pale, her lips trembling, but she couldn't say a word. Chun-Li Juan also panicked and quickly asked, "Divorce? Why? Are we doing fine?" I repeated firmly, "Divorce, although the property is all paid for by me, and the savings are all from my salary. But according to the law, I am willing to divide it in half. Hao has made it clear that he wants to stay with me, so I am applying for his custody." I pulled out the divorce agreement that I had prepared earlier from my pocket and placed it in front of them. "If you agree, sign it now, and then you can leave." Chun-Li Juan's expression changed noticeably when she heard split the assets in half, but to get out quickly, she quickly concealed her emotions and urged Xiao Beiming to sign, disregarding her wishes. Xiao Beiming's eyes were red-rimmed, tears welled up in her eyes, and she choked out, "Junling, we've been in love for 10 years. Are you just abandoning me like this? You really don't want me anymore?" I nodded calmly, my tone even but resolute. "I don't. Some things, if you don't cherish them, you'll lose them." Tears streamed down Xiao Beiming's face as she asked desperately, "What about Hao? Does he also?" I stared at her, knowing the bond between her and her son. Although Xiao Beiming had always been dissatisfied with me, she had poured her heart and soul into raising Hao. I didn't directly answer her question, but instead silently opened a video call. Hao's tender face appeared on the screen, and he said softly, "Mom, don't worry, I'll always be your child. It's just that after spending so much time with Grandma and Grandpa, it's time for me to spend some time with my paternal grandparents." Hearing Hao Hao's words, Xiao Beiming finally broke down. Trembling, she picked up a pen and signed her name on the divorce agreement. Then, with her parents, she left the place overnight and disappeared from my sight. I thought that spending the new year in detention would be enough for them to remember for the rest of their lives. After Xiao Beiming and her family left, Hao Hao and I stayed in our hometown for a while. He spent every day with his grandparents, and his little face was always beaming with smiles. My parents also seemed younger, and I felt a lot lighter too. After the spring started, I took Hao Hao to City A. One reason was to finalize the divorce, and the other was to handle Hao Hao's school transfer. The divorce certificate was processed smoothly, and as I looked at the bright red divorce certificate, a mixture of emotions welled up inside me. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of youth, had ended so hastily. However, what I didn't expect was that this family couldn't change their ways. When it came to dividing the assets, there was only 1,000 yuan left in our joint account. We had clearly discussed it beforehand, but in the end, we had to go to court. I immediately hired a lawyer and sued Xiao Beiming for illegally transferring marital property. In court, Xiao Beiming and her parents insisted that the money had all been spent on household expenses and even fabricated some non-existent expenditures. Looking at their hypocritical faces, I felt disgusted. Fortunately, Hao Hao had also completely seen through their true colors and was holding my hand tightly, giving me silent support. To find evidence, I hired a private investigator, and we actually found something. Xiao Beiming had transferred the money to an account under the name of a certain Liang. The name sounded familiar. Chen Lijuan had always mentioned him to me before, saying how outstanding her classmate's son was, how much money he made, and that I was not comparable to him, etc. Now it seemed they had been in cahoots for a long time. Digging deeper, I discovered that Xiao Beiming and Liang had been secretly seeing each other for 2 years. No wonder she had become increasingly indifferent to me in the past 2 years. It turned out she had found a new love. She didn't want a divorce simply because she didn't want to give up my dog-like care. And all of this was instigated by her parents. When they learned that I would be taking half of the assets, they came up with this terrible idea. Well, now they tried to steal a chicken only to lose the rice. They'd gone to jail before. Now, they were going back. The law is just... I successfully recovered my share of the assets, but unfortunately, Liang had already squandered Xiao Beiming's part. What's even more ironic is that after Xiao Beiming went to jail, Liang immediately distanced himself and abandoned her. I sold the house in City A. Chen Lijuan and Xiao Yiming completely lost their support and had to return to their hometown in disgrace. I heard that they were now living on meager pensions and had a very difficult life. They couldn't even hold their heads up in the village. I returned to my hometown with Hao Hao to start our lives anew. Lu Yu was my childhood friend, the best of friends. He was also my father's apprentice, so he'd gone out of his way to help my family during the 10 years I was away. When he heard about my divorce and that I had been schemed against by my ex-wife's family, he was so angry, he almost came to cut them down with a knife. When he learned that I was planning to start my own business and open a security company, he immediately took out his savings and said with confidence, "Brother, I support you." Thinking about being alone in City A and now back in my own territory, feeling like I was cared for, felt really great. Soon, I gathered the veterans I knew, and the security company's business was getting better and better. Hao also adapted very quickly. After joining the new school, he quickly fit in. In his own words, his bloodline was awakened. As the days passed, I believed that after leaving that vampire-like family, we will get better and better. Then,